And welcome back. And it's the battle of the sunglasses, folks, here on this Friday edition of the Kevin Allen Show. Tim Riley, our friend. Again, let's just set up this interview and this contributing here to the Kevin Allen Show. Tyrant Slater Studio, located in Connecticut, but really involved across the country. Again, this is typically the videos, the commentary, and the bringing up to the conversation about law enforcement and other public officials misusing power. Tim, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Kevin. Thank you so much for allowing me to join you again, sir.
Well, your voice sounds awesome. I've been dealing with some sound quality issues last couple of days, but you sound like you're a booming radio host with that deep sound. Tim, it's been a bit. Let's get right into it. Obviously, I just had Chris Strum on, who's a good friend and contributor and just an all-around honest guy. I know he's one of the good guys, and I know I defend police, and I will never change. And I will give the 99.9% of them the benefit of the doubt, but set it up for the folks listening about your passion and what you do each and every day.
Okay, so here at Tyrant Slayer Studios, we like to attempt with very, a tremendous due diligence to hold our government, our public servants accountable when appropriate. We are trying to create transparency, accountability, and of course, when appropriate, liability. With that said, we apply a tremendous level of focus upon law enforcement officers, but we're not exclusively, shadowing them, if you will. We spread our work out equally, and we will apply our cameras and our wits to any situation involving public servants or any agency of government, whether it's local, state, or federal. I think this incident in Texas, I think, this latest shooting, one of the latest shootings, I think it's going to be hard for anyone, even pro-law enforcement individuals, to defend the actions of the law enforcement officers who were dispatched there to appropriately respond. And I think they dropped the ball on that in every which way possible. I've read a number of very egregious articles regarding that incident out there. I've actually been sent some video from my subscribers. I've got about 50,000 subscribers. They've sent me video from the incident, and I was almost at the point of throwing up when I watched these officers threaten, scream at, physically push around and assault parents who were saying, "Give me that body armor, I'll go in and I'll get my kid." In fact, there was one woman who was at one point handcuffed and detained, and she was actually able to free herself from the handcuffs. She went into the school, saved her 2 children, and came back out, and the police still at that point hadn't even responded. Still, I mean, there was like a 90-minute, give or take maybe 10 minutes or so, 90 minutes of the cops just doing absolutely nothing while these poor innocent children are being shot inside the school. And I was just...
Colleen Mary's chiming in, who's going to be coming on later in the show. And of course, Sweet Liberty. I know how to spell it, Colleen. Liberty. I just had autocorrect. Relax. Anyways, she's commenting pepper spray. This is not a funny topic down there in Texas. You heard Chris Strum, and he is a cop. I thought he handled the question well. There's a lot of questions. There was a lot of things that even to he and many of us, like myself, law enforcement today connected, we have a lot of concern about how it was handled. Okay, so there's an ability for us to agree on this. Okay, I do think that the answers are they're a lot deeper than just why right now. I think society's taken a shift. And of course, our law enforcement isn't the law enforcement of yesteryear, where they used to kick the door in and just beat you up. But at the same time, are we training these people, meaning cops, maybe not to react a certain way because of public opinion as much as it has grown with corporate media? It's a major concern for law enforcement. They worry about what they do because they don't want to lose their jobs. They're not even thinking half the time about their lives. They're thinking about their jobs at the end of the day. And that's a fair question, I think, right?
Well, yeah, I think that absolutely factors into the equation. It kind of affects their sort of rules of engagement, if you will. But we only see them, conducting themselves this way during a situation where they might be hurt and there's innocent children involved, for example, like in Texas. But when it's marijuana, they serve no-knock warrants and kick in your door at 5:30 in the morning with guns drawn, guns blazing, and they'll shoot an off-duty police officer inside of his house by accident on occasion. It's
Where
like
did that happen?
there was a recent story about the off-duty officer shot in his own home. It's a couple weeks old. Off the top of my head, I can't remember, so I don't want
Yeah,
to say.
send it to me. I'd love to read that. And of course, picking these things apart are kind of where you're focused from. And you brought up, and I want to get into this because I think it's interesting what you do. And as much as it boils my blood sometimes to see how you go about it. But we have this respectful rapport, which I think is important in resolving these issues, Tim. And you brought up also about elected officials. I mean, I think we probably could fund your efforts pretty heavily if you just start attacking elected officials instead of cops, because they seem to be the ones that are screwing this up even worse.
Well, yeah, the mayors in the cities are definitely going to play a role on how the police conduct themselves. Chief of police is also going to play a very big role. Look, like in any other office or agency, the fish is going to rot from the head down. And I have to make it clear, I do apply a lot of focus to law enforcement, but my efforts are not to focus on the negatives per se. There's a teachable positive moment in all of these situations. Even the situation, as egregious as it is in Texas, has some positives and does yield teachable moments for us, regular Americans, citizens, journalists, or activists alike, to come together to the table and talk about how we can improve going forward. What can we do to save more lives next time? What sort of procedures and policies do we need to implement or focus more upon to get a better response next time? Because it's going to happen again. It's just a matter of time. And when it does, we want our public servants who are there responding to save as many lives as they can, even if it means risking their own.
So how do we get the confidence of the people? In your opinion, I don't need and this is a silly thing to say. I'm arrogant in the sense of I don't feel like I need education on how to support law enforcement because I truly believe in my heart 99.9% of them are doing the right thing. You can catch anybody in the right moment. You could expose something that looks a certain way in a clip of 13, 15, 20, 30 seconds, and it could tell a story that actually isn't true. But how can we I mean, you must think about this. How can we fix this from your perspective and help me understand?
Well, what I often suggest when I'm speaking with a lieutenant or a chief of police, one of my first questions always is when I uncover police misconduct, and I'm not one to take things out of context and show the people something that's deceiving. I'll leave my content completely raw, unedited, uncut. And when I try to address the issues that I capture, I'll often ask the chief of police, how many hours a year is this law enforcement officer required to spend on the range to qualify? What does he got to do to qualify every year, with his weapons and his he has to spend 16 hours annually at the range. He has to fire this many rounds. Oh, okay. How many hours a year are our law enforcement officers required to spend in the law library, actually learning the laws that they're supposed to be enforcing? And he goes, law library? What's a law library? So I think people and our public servants alike, citizens and our public servants alike, our government officials alike, absolutely do need to be educated. Pretending to know is no longer working. You can't fake it until you make it in law enforcement when there's people's lives on the line. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to know the law so that you don't make mistakes that ultimately either cost someone their life or cost taxpayers millions of dollars or a city $14 million after they illegally incarcerate someone for 20 years or whatever the case may be. We need to get our heads together and learn together so that we can properly execute our decisions together.
So in case or excuse me in law across the country, here in Connecticut, as Tim and I both live, and also across this great country, laws are in the book on the books, Tim, that actually give the rights to thoroughly investigate, shootings, situations. There's complaint processes. What is wrong with that current process, in your opinion, that we need to fix? Because it seems like these are the things in place, and we're always looking to redefine something or fix it by passing a law that is socially conscious. What's the things you think we can do?
It's certainly not the law that is the problem. It is the people who are facilitating the means for the public to acquire these services. Uh, 9 out of 10 times they are rude, bombastic, arrogant, and very, very defensive. You know, if you walk into any state police barracks and you ask for a complaint form, you might even be told, "Oh, we don't have those." Or that person who runs that office isn't in today. Or you try to put in a Freedom of Information Act request for body cam footage. Oh, the file was corrupted. Oh, we have the video, but the audio is something happened to the audio. They lose records, they alter records, they tamper with records, they cover up their cover ups, and the mayors don't care. The governor's office doesn't care. The AG, the attorney general's office, laughs at me and says, "Oh, we don't represent the citizens. We represent the cops in this case. We represent the city or the state." You know, no one wants to do anything, and you can develop as much tangible, physical, irrefutable evidence of misconduct and procedural requirement violations, and nobody cares. Oh, file a complaint. Go ahead, go down there, file a complaint, see what happens. It's like these people think nothing is ever going to happen, and in most cases, nothing does. It takes people like me, people like you, working together, filing lawsuits in U.S. District Court to make the differences that we're going to need.
So I find it interesting because you still haven't won me over into your pathway. All right, I do like the fact that you're very clear in what your thoughts are, and I think in some of my experiences with some of the folks that are very passionate about and I don't want to categorize you, but we'll kind of throw it in there just for sake of argument, social sort of justice movement of really opening up this conversation across the country. We've also seen Black Lives Matters social movements come out. Sometimes you partner with those folks on some of their positions, as well as sometimes you also, I've witnessed you even defend sort of law enforcement on some of the anti-cop movement. How do you fine line that? Because I mean, I guess I'm that same way, Tim. That's probably why we get along so well. But how do you deal with that issue? Because it is difficult to satisfy both masters.
Well, it's a case by case basis. You can't put any sort of general outlook upon anything in any sort of broad way. You can't paint society or specific groups or agencies with a big broad brush. You just can't do it. That's stereotyping. That would mean you're carrying a prejudice and preconceived notions. You can't look at a situation objectively with preconceived misconceptions and notions. You have to be malleable. You have to be open. You have to see for yourself what's going on and make your own conclusions as you evolve and learn what's happening in the situation. So yeah, there's been a number of instances where, and I wouldn't say I've supported Black Lives Matter, but I've supported my fellow Black Americans in their efforts to draw attention and conjure up solutions to some very serious problems. I've done it on both sides. I've seen where the cops are libeled and slandered and made out to be these racist bigots when clearly they're not. Clearly, they're just trying to enforce some laws. Clearly, and that's going back to what you mentioned earlier. It's like, well, maybe they didn't pull that guy over this time because of what the news said about him last time. Sure, that's going to make a difference. Cops are a little worried. They don't want to be held liable. They don't want a lien put on their house. I mean, and that's completely understandable.
Tim, couldn't that help? And I don't mean help in a positive way, but couldn't that contribute to a crime? Maybe someone gets killed because a cop wasn't able to stop that action. And again, I'm not going to debate the Texas thing because everything from public perception that we were able to view from our long, long, far distance away doesn't look good. Looks bad. At the same time, who's calling the shots? Who opened the door? These are questions that are popping up even in the feed. I want to get all the information before I make a real kind of conscious opinion. You just made a very valid point, though, Tim. Cops are going to be second guessing their moves. Do you worry a little bit about your energy is helping contribute to maybe someone could get hurt because they're not reacting correctly?
No, I have a much different narrative than corporate media. I'm not I'm not out, demonizing police every day. I have a very fair kind of calculated conversation about situations law enforcement finds itself in. Cops, I think law enforcement can find me very useful. I can provide a lot of education, not just to the citizens, but to the police here. Uh, and I think I'm a very fair, impartial observer. I try to create. I try to be objective, and essentially all I do is create an adjective record of what's happening in front of me in public. And it's a fair question. It's hard to answer, really. On one hand, maybe I am making the cops feel uncomfortable. But it's not my presence. It's not my reporting per se. It's the officer's own sort of, I wouldn't want to say paranoia, but his own sort of anxiety. He's got his own issues going on. Listen, any officer who is conducting himself to the letter of the law and following policy and procedure has nothing to be afraid of. If you're not breaking the law as a citizen, you have nothing to worry about. If you're not breaking the law or violating policies and procedures as a cop, you have nothing to worry about. Even if the news does come out with a BS story about you, at the end of the day, you crossed all the T's and you've dotted all of your I's. In fact, I would think that would compel the police to reach out to me, independent media, or reach out to you and say, hey, look, to try to combat what Channel 3 or Fox 61 or whoever it might be might say that's untrue. They can come to us and we can create a symbiotic relationship where we can help one another clear the bad air and move forward productively for a change.
All right. Well, Tim, listen, I want to thank you for coming on Tyrant Slayer Studios. Tell people where they can find you, locate you, and get more content from you. And we'll also let's schedule you. I want to continue these weekly conversations because it kind of gets me back to the roots, Tim, where I started this whole journey. People that are actually they're out there on both sides of the conversation. And honestly, we're not going to fix it if we just stay in one lane. So, Tim, tell us where we can find you.
You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/ Worthy Son of Liberty. That'll take you right to the Tyrant Slayer Studios page on Facebook. You can find my video content on YouTube, featured on Tyrant Slayer Studios. And you can find my collective work with my 21 colleagues from across the nation, from California to Connecticut, Chicago to Florida, on Activism News Network, featured on Roku. If you go to activismnewsnetwork.com, you can subscribe to our channel. It's $3.99 a month, but we're featured on Roku, Amazon, Google Play, Apple Play, pretty much anywhere people are going to be streaming content. So we would love to see you come out and support our efforts in creating transparency, accountability, and, of course, when appropriate, liability. The more people who engage and join the discussion, the more fruitful it will be at the end of the day. And I think we're going to need that big basket of fruit to be able to actually make some positive force for progress here.
Well, let the fruit move on and pass the fruit bowl along. As I say farewell to the fruit of the day, Tim. That's a joke. All right, Tim. Thanks.
Very clever.
Down the road. You set yourself up for that, my buddy.
Very clever, my
All right,
man.
there you go, Tim. Right.